Hi and welcome to this session of Talking Tech, Women and Girls in ICT. My name is Chloe Marie, and today I am delighted to be representing Hunter College in New York and UNICC. Today I will be having this discussion about tech and tech careers with Nuria Reques Waterink. The goals of Talking Tech series are to help create a global environment that empowers and encourages girls and young women to consider studies and careers in the growing field of technology. This series also provides insight on leading women in tech, their career journeys, and their work. Before jumping in, here's a brief background on Talking Tech. The Talking Tech series is brought to you by the ITU, UNICC, and the Office of the UN Secretary General's Envoy on Youth, and is in support of Equals, the Global Partnership for Gender Equality in the Digital Age. To kick this session off, I'm excited and honored to have this conversation with Nuria Reques Waterink, who is a business relationship manager at UNICC. Nuria has over 20 years of experience in international organizations in the UN and in the private sector as an IT manager and a program manager. She has always been active in fundraising for projects to advance the status of women and in voluntary functions related to poverty reduction for children and animal welfare. Hi, Nuria. Thank you for being here today and welcome to Talking Tech.
It's a pleasure.
So my first question for you is, what was your earliest experience with using technology and what aspects sparked your interest to pursue this as a career?
That is some time ago, as I'm of the age of 48 at the moment. So I remember that when I was around 14 years old, my father brought home the first Commodore 64 computer that we had to log on to the TV. That was my first experience with IT. And the only thing we did was play games, and we also recorded programs through the radio on the cassette. It was very old-fashioned, but for me in that time, it was magic. Later on, during my studies, when I was studying at university, we got email, but there were not many people that you could email to because it was only used at universities. And later on, of course, it all started and erupted with social media, chat sites, etc. But those days when my father brought home the Commodore 64, and I think that a lot of people that are watching this, that are of my age group, remember that. That was my first experience, yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier, you're active in fundraising for projects related to women, children, and animal welfare. Can you name one of the fundraising projects you've worked on and how technology has helped in supporting this cause?
Well, it was not really fundraising, but I have been a member of the board of oversight of a foundation that was supporting children from poor families in the Netherlands with all the articles and supply they needed to perform at school. And you have to think of families that have a budget to spend monthly of around 150 euros, which is perhaps $180 per month for the family. And those children have to go to school and they need a PC. But also, when you go to high school, it is necessary these days to have a phone, a mobile phone. It has your bell schedule, but it also has your homework, it holds your grades, etc. For a family that has around $180 to spare a month on groceries, travel, clothing, etc., that is almost an impossible task to provide children with a phone, with a subscription, etc. So what we did with the foundation was supply children with laptops, PCs. Those were mostly refurbished and donated by companies in the Netherlands, in the cities, etc. But also we got to an agreement with T-Mobile to hand out smartphones. So the kids could watch their bell schedule, could participate in class, and also could participate, for example, in WhatsApp groups. Because these days, as we know, if you're not in a WhatsApp group of your friends, your school class, I don't know, the volleyball club or whatsoever. You're out. And so for social inclusion, we thought as a board of oversight and as the foundation that was hosting this and handing these out, that it was very important. And to be honest, there has been a huge discussion in the media about this. There was a discussion, is a phone a luxury item or is it a necessity these days for school kids? And especially when they go to high school. We thought it was a necessity, but especially people from my age group still think that a phone is a luxury item. And that is something that I think in this world has changed. Without your technology around you, it's difficult to participate these days.
Yeah, it definitely has become a necessity, especially in the wave of COVID, which we are living in right now. So speaking of, a lot of tech services and companies have come under fire in recent years due to the overwhelming role AI has played in persuading political and social views of end users. How do you see the role of IT in terms of social responsibility, and why would including women in that decision-making process be important?
I think that in these days, and we're talking January 2021, we have all seen in the media how important technology is in politics, in society, and also in the lives of people. Because the big four, the big tech four, so to say, are at this moment putting boundaries to their services. And it has to do with American politics. And there's a lot of discussion now on whether that is ethical or unethical. To me, it proves how important tech has become in our daily lives and how important tech has become in opinions of people. Gartner has indicated that for 2021, one of the trends is the Internet of behavior. More and more industries, but also governments are using data to influence the behavior, but also the opinions of people. And if that is ethical or unethical, I don't know. I think it depends on the subject. But what we know is that it's part of life. We're being watched, we are being monitored, and it can have a huge social impact for the good. For example, monitoring data could prevent online bullying. It could also give indications for mental health, physical health, and it could give, for example, input on the behavior of people on the road and, in relation to insurance policies. So there's a lot that can be done for the good, but of course also for the bad. And that is something that we have to adapt to, that we have to adapt laws to, but also that decision makers and politicians have to think about and to see, to what extent should that be an open market and should it be available and should it be possible, and to what extent do the consumers and does the world, so to say, have to be protected. So it's very interesting. And you were also asking, what could the role of women be? I think that technology is changing fast and it's impacting society, and we have to change along with it. And for our children, it's easier than if you have to go along with everything that changes and really have to adapt your visions, your behavior, etc. You cannot just post anything. And I think that um, women by nature, I think, are bridging gaps, and they do that at work, they do that in their personal lives, in their family, etc. And there could be a role of women here as well, in educating, in adapting, in explaining, but also in indicating where the risks are, but also the possibilities. And more from the soft side of IT and the soft side of behavior than the hard side, so to say, like the technology and the finance, but more from the soft side. I think that without women, we cannot bridge the gaps of the old and the new and adapt.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you, especially in terms of how necessary the soft skills are in technology, which most people wouldn't think. But yeah, it is a big part of that. And how would you describe your generation's view of IT and evolving developments in technology?
When I was young, we didn't have a PC. And what I heard from my colleagues when I started working is that programming was done on paper. That it was sent to ladies that would create these cards, that would go into these old machines that was big as the living room, and something would come out. It would either be right or wrong. And if it was wrong, you had to go back to your paper. So that is the world I'm coming from with regards to IT. Everything was done by hand. And I think that for example, if we talk about automation, hyper automation, RPA, that many people think that as soon as a robot kicks in or comes into the process, that people will lose jobs. It's a replacement for human beings. And I think with that regards, it is a threat to many people of my age. And when you look at, IT and tech in your private life, a lot of people like social media, but also the Internet of Things. Many people, first of all, don't really understand what the impact is and what the possibilities are. But many people also think it's a threat to their privacy, and that Big Brother's watching, and that it is dangerous to share. It is dangerous to have a digital footprint. And that is something that my generation, I always say that my generation is the bridging generation from the pre-PC era, so the pre-technology era, so to say, as we know it now,
Hmm.
to the new world in which we are in now. So it's a threat to many people. And there's also people that are open-minded and that think that there's big opportunities, because nowadays, from your smartphone, you can turn on the heating at home on your way back from work. You can close the curtains. You can manage your field of view and to the atmosphere that you want to create in your room. And that is a nice possibility, of course, with regards to Internet of Things. So a lot of people also see the possibilities, but I think that the downside is that people see the threats.
And it's the threats that tend to jump out at people more, and it tends to leave an overwhelming fear.
I hope there's a balance, but yes, if I speak about work, if I share experiences and projects that we work on, then many of my friends would say, "Oh, but are people going to lose their jobs? And what is the alternative for them? And what are they going to do? Are they going to be unemployed?" And in a lot of cases, that is absolutely not the case. It enables people to go more into the complex materials, the more interesting things, and it takes away the repetitive daily tasks. But in the end, of course, we are looking for efficiency. We are looking at making processes faster, cheaper, and of a higher quality. How does your generation look at technology? Do they see it as a threat? Do they see it as an opportunity? Or do they see it as an integrated part of life?
I would say my generation's view of IT and evolving tech is definitely more optimistic. Most of us in developed countries have essentially grown up with a smartphone in our hands. So most of us understand the law of the land in the digital world. But most importantly, our ability to adapt to changing technologies has provided us immense opportunities, whether it be for social networking or self education or even building multiple streams of income. And I especially think with technology replacing manual jobs, we can think up smarter, more meaningful roles for people to have in society, and perhaps even use these advancements to provide more legislative funding for social programs and community services and education.
And how do you, because
Well,
it's so easy to share, but it's so difficult to undo what you have shared on
well,
social media.
there is an etiquette that I feel like I can't speak for my entire generation, but there is an etiquette that's like well understood. like in poli science, like in political science, like there are certain rules of the land that you don't talk about, but you follow. And there's a certain like etiquette that we've all learned from experience of exposure to this at such a young age. So I think in terms of security, it's not too much of our concern yet. We'll see when my generation has kids, it might change then. Um, which brings
Let's
me to
see, I will be a grandmother then.
I'll have to catch back up with you on that one. Which leads to my next question. What would you like to see change in the portrayal of people, particularly women who work in tech? This can span from the public's view, cultural view, or the media's portrayal of people in tech.
If I would ask somebody on the street, somebody here in my household, to draw a typical IT person, they would draw a person that is perhaps not particularly sexy. And that is the image that IT has. It is technical, it's a certain type of people, and they are mostly very smart. I think that is the stereotype of an IT person. But I work in IT, and I speak to IT people every day. And what I know is that that is not the case anymore. There's so many ambitious, modern, hip, engaged, but also very intelligent people in IT, men and women, that I think that the stereotype of an IT person should really change. And IT is an enabler. IT is driving our business. Many companies have to close down when IT systems don't work these days. Banks, insurance companies, working is basically not possible anymore without IT, without technology. So it is very important. The people that are driving this, creating this, are totally not nerdy and intelligent. Yes, they are, but they are also creative, and they're wonderful people, to be honest. And the same counts for men and women here, I guess. It is true that IT is seen as a man's world, and unfortunately, it is still more man's than a mixed world, I would say. And that is a pity. So it would be nice if girls would, yeah, engage more in tech studies and tech education, and that is of course where it starts. And I think that will be more and more the case. Now, gaming is hot, now social media is hot, and there's more eye for design and the total end user experience in IT. And I think that is something that is more attractive to girls. So I hope it will change in the future. But I can assure you, everyone that is watching, IT is not a nerdy business anymore.
Absolutely not. And with the challenges that one can face in tech, what would you say is a critical lesson you've learned throughout your career that has helped you get to where you are today?
Well, personally, I'm a political scientist. I'm not very technical, although I'm working in IT for 20 years. So I understand more or less what goes around in IT. What I have learned and also from watching other people, watching role models, that it is not necessary to pretend to be very technical or to pretend to understand or pretend to be very tough and etc. In your role. That is not necessary. You can be the woman that you are, and a mix is good. A mix of different people with different capacities and with different talents makes a team work and makes a team successful. So what I would say is be yourself and be the woman that you are, and also show your soft side. It's okay. It makes projects successful.
That is very good advice. um, But I have another question to ask in regards to that, which bridges me to my next question. Since this series is about girls and women in technology, do you have any career or tech advice to give our listeners?
Yeah, what I would say to all the girls, always go for the max. Go for the max in terms of what you can learn and the joy that a job could give you. Because more important than earning a good salary or having, as many people as possible in your team is the joy of doing what you like, doing what you love. And the energy that you bring home at the end of the day, perhaps you're at home because we're in post-COVID world now and everybody's working remotely. So
Yes.
the energy that you bring back from your workplace is the most important thing in life. And that is what makes you happy. And that is also, yeah, when you look back on your life, that gives you satisfaction, I believe. I think there's nobody that looks back on their life when they're 98 years old or 105, or however old we get, and that thinks, I wish I would have been at the office more. I wish I would have earned more, and I wish I would have had more people in my team. Ultimately, that is not important. The joy that you had and the stories that you can tell to your friends of the successes and the things that you're proud of, that is what really counts. That
I
is the advice that I would give all the girls.
I absolutely agree. I could not agree more. And I think that we are starting to see that shift in dynamics and the need to create that secure and uplifting environment in technology. Thank you for giving such insightful answers. Do you have any questions for me?
So I do have a question for you, Chloe. The same question you were asking me. What was your first experience in technology? And what was it that sparked your interest to pursue a career in this field?
Well, I've had many early experiences with technology, but I think the most notable one for me was when I was customizing my social media page. I was a kid. I was not allowed to have social
Yeah.
media. So it was not, yeah, I was doing this on the low. Um, and I wanted to customize this website design that I had, and I wanted to integrate a music playlist. What I found myself doing was studying the HTML code for like 30 minutes because I didn't understand it. And I was just like, this is before I knew what copy and paste was, God bless. And after studying it, I was able to manage how to customize it. So I had 2 tabs, maybe 3 tabs max, where I was editing on one side and then I was saving and then watching to see what would happen on the other side. And it became this very like interactive experience where it's like I would have code left over in my profile and I'd be like, okay, no, we need to step back a little. So that was my first experience with with technology, like really using
Wow.
it to that level as a kid, which I didn't know was like programming on any level. It's always just been there, so I didn't really think about it at the time. And uh, one of the aspects, well, there are many aspects that sparked my interest to pursue this, but I think from having a fashion background, I used to be a stylist, production manager, women's wear designer, and one of the biggest issues I've had with fashion, with the industry in general, was answered in my pursuit of using technology, of using technology to solve these problems. So, cost efficiency, providing multiple solutions to different industries without physical waste, the ability to create and curate with zero waste. Those were problems that I was looking to solve, and computer science gave me that ability to address those issues that we have in the world right now.
Wow. And how old were you when you did your first programming?
Uh, Probably like 9 or 10. Yeah, I really wasn't supposed. I mean, that's not the age that anyone is supposed to have social media. I was just like kind of like on the sly. But Yeah, I was like 9 or 10 and I didn't know it was programming. I didn't know.
Yeah, I think you're a good example for how cool and beautiful tech people can be. Yeah?
Thank you.
You said you were working in fashion design. And
Mhm.
fashion, of course, is all about beauty and looks, and technology is mostly about usability and efficiency. How important do you think that design is in the end user experience of IT, of technology?
Mhm. It's incredibly important. You know, the way information is presented affects how we perceive it, especially with the younger generations. Our technology, in many aspects, is an extension of ourselves, our lives, our personal journeys, and core values. So it's going to be imperative
Yeah,
for companies. Yeah, it's going to be imperative for companies to keep up with the demand for change. Any well-trained engineer can get an application or service to integrate or function. But design is the very thing that creates meaning and value. It's a cohesive part of improving the human experience. And we're not only living in a technical age, but a visual age.
true. And it also helps in the adaptation of new solutions, new technologies, and new systems.
I've heard.
Easiness
Mhm.
and what it looks like. Yeah.
I've heard people in the art world, since you mentioned beauty and aesthetics and everything, I've heard people in the art world talk a lot about the need for a cultural renaissance. Well, it's happening as we speak. It's just being delivered through a different medium this time. It's not paintings, but it's technology, design that provides function, practicality, efficiency in solving current problems that we face, whether it be political, humanitarian, or social. Yeah, design is a cohesive part of that.
With everything that is going on right now, whether it be in politics, socioeconomic, or humanitarian, technology has played a vital role in shaping the conversation and the narrative. So, Chloe, what are some tips you have to drive change from a cultural perspective? And in relation to that, what would you advise my generation that has some difficulties adapting to the technological change?
Well, actually, uh, well, that's a twofold question, and I think the solution is quite related. So I'll try with that. Driving change. Driving change requires a certain level of self awareness. In the process of taking up social responsibility, you have to be cognizant of the specific problems that you're trying to solve. Being knowledgeable of the tools that you have to your advantage to shape the narrative that you're trying to create is imperative not only to driving change, but sustaining it. So, if you're not self aware, if you think, well, where do I start? Researching is definitely a good start, and understanding like the sustainable development goals and what companies and the public and private sector are interchangeably trying to do to solve that issue. Um, Researching, reading, and reflecting on what you've learned, I think is incredibly important for understanding what exactly you're addressing, what are you solving, and how are you using the tools that are presented to you to your advantage to tackle those problems and reach a wider audience.
Yeah, absolutely. If I would give you a blank sheet of paper and I would ask you to draft your own job profile, what would it be?
I wouldn't put one specific role in mind. Definitely a role that requires a multifaceted background, one that requires responsibility for connecting different assets and building growth, whether it be for sustainability, profit, or both. I love being able to use a combination of my soft skills, creative, and because of my computer science background, technical skills to manage and oversee projects. So definitely something where I can build on all of my skills interchangeably.
And that would be fun as well, eh?
Mm,
What we discussed
very.
before. So you have been working in the tech industry and also studying tech. You're studying tech as well. Are there any challenges you have faced so far?
The irony of using technology to bring about solutions and bridge information gaps is that despite the ability to connect, I still feel very disconnected in terms of feeling the community, especially for women in the tech industry. So I think that's definitely something that needs to be addressed, and we need to actively work on it. There's something that everyone can do to provide this safe and transparent community.
That is true, and that is something. It is something that I have to look at as well, because we, the women that are already working in tech, should also foster that safe community and create a safe community for the young people that are joining. So I take that as a tip for myself as well. It is very important, and everybody should feel welcome when joining a job, a company, or a new field of work, and you feel a little bit insecure. You have to learn. You're not sure of how things work, and if you have the right capabilities, perhaps.
Mhm.
Well, you have, because otherwise you wouldn't be here, of course. But it's important that you also feel well accepted and feel part of the community. So it is very important. Finally, Chloe, do you have, because you are asking me as well, but do you have any tips for girls and women in tech? What is the message that you would like to bring to them?
Don't be afraid to make mistakes and live as deliberately as you can. Embracing your mistakes is so incredibly important in not only making you who you are, but building your confidence, building your skill set, building your experience, and understanding what it means to live deliberately, to have purpose, to have a cause. Like, to me, that is the wealth of living. It's not really, I mean, you're not really going to have the money and the property at the end of your life when your time is up, right? But you will have a combination of experiences where you have been able to utilize and grow new skills where you not only uh, benefit yourself, but you benefit the rest of humanity. So I think that those are definitely important things that we need to stress, especially for the younger generations. The importance of core values and character. Thank you for your questions. And thank you for being here today. It was amazing talking to you, and I've learned so much from getting to know you. And that wraps up our session today for Talking Tech, Women and Girls in ICT. Thanks so much, Nuria. I really enjoyed our chat today. And thank you to our viewers for watching.